It's very good to talk to you this morning, Vince Cable. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. I know that we'll get into the prospects of becoming Prime Minister, especially with so few MPs, in just a moment. I just firstly want to get your views on this repeated assertion by the Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, about this £350 million a week that we could take back control of after we have left the European Union. It is a very bold headline claim. It obviously played its part in the Vote Leave campaign, possibly could have swung the issue for many voters. What is your issue with the £300 million a week claim?
Well, it's this old adage, you know, a lie is still a lie despite being repeated. I mean, it's not just a party political point here. I mean, you've had the intervention of the government's chief statistician, who is an official, who is non-political, making it absolutely clear that this is not a fact. I mean, this is simply incorrect. But I think the underlying problem is that Boris Johnson is directly contradicting the Prime Minister and indeed David Davis, who've made it very clear that there is a divorce negotiation. Britain is going to have to make a contribution to leave. There are various commitments that Britain has made and which we're legally bound to. And as a result of that, the idea of taking back money in the way that Boris Johnson describes is simply not true. And, you know, I mean, what is so worrying about this from a national point of view is that you have different members of the cabinet directly contradicting each other in the middle of a negotiation. I mean, it's like a school that is completely out of control and the head teachers barricaded in her office can't impose any kind of discipline.
But what do you say to those people who, even if it's 170 million a week, the net contribution that we send to the EU. What do you say to those people who say, look, we don't actually care about the amount, but the point is we will take back control of millions of pounds a week that we currently send to the EU that we don't have control over, and we could spend here on things like the National Health Service?
Well, the fact is that eventually, of course, Britain wouldn't be making a net contribution. And in that very, blindingly obvious way, there is control of spending. But that's not what he's saying. What he's implying and actually saying is that somehow or other there is additional money going to be created by leaving. And this is simply not true, because Britain has very large outstanding obligations which will have to be met to the European Union. And I believe the Prime Minister may well be confirming this week that the sum is about 30 billion in outstanding commitments. And there is no way of walking away from that. And even Nigel Farage, who was the most vehement advocate of leaving the European Union, expressed his own embarrassment at the way in which this 350 million figure kept being bandied around. So for Boris Johnson to come back to it is just digging a deeper and deeper hole and making Britain the laughingstock of the people who are trying to negotiate with.